Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Another day, another commitment for the Florida Gators. This one coming from a familiar face, four-star defensive lineman Joseph Mbatchou, flipping his commitment from Texas back to Florida. I think a lot of Florida fans remember we broke down this kid committing to Florida in the summer. And at that time, there wasn't even a 24/7 sports profile created for Joseph Mbatchou. You talk about a riser in the 2025 class. There ain't many more than Joseph Mbatchou, who is in his first year of playing football at the high school level and is just dripping with physical traits. You know, he's a kid from Cameroon, kind of grew up playing basketball. I mean, at a certain point, I think they're like, all right, you're 6'4" and a half, 275, a ton of length in the arms. Say, we got to get you on the football field. And it's translated relatively quick. And we're going to get into some of the film. The film is of a kid that, yeah, doesn't really know what he's doing on the football field just quite yet. It is very evident that this kid is extremely physically gifted. And if you're Jarrell Chapman, you're just saying, hey, give me this kid on my team. Let me work with him. Let me coach him up. And let's see how good of a football player he can be in 2026 and in 2027. This kid is going to be a fascinating player to watch over the next couple of years. Now, we're going to talk about Joseph Mbatchou. We're also going to talk about a ton of buzz around a ton of top targets for the Florida Gators as well. Now, before we get into it, as always, the Florida Gator fans, the boys can't thank y'all enough. It has been a blast covering this team on the football field in 2024, covering about what they're doing on the recruiting trail. The amount of support y'all continue to show, it means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this one now. I want to start with kind of what I think is going on with this Florida program and why are they just catching absolute fire on the recruiting trail. I think it's two things. One, this Florida program, it sells itself. Like there's a lot of kids that grow up wanting to play for the Florida Gators. And I think a lot of these kids in this 2025 class were looking at the program, the future of this program. And, you know, it was pretty murky, especially to start the year in 2024. You kind of fast forward to the end of November, going into the month of December and saying it, one, the future's clear. But I think more importantly, this team is clearly turning the corner under Billy Napier. And I think the second thing is the young talent, the young nucleus that this Florida team has. And that kind of works in two ways. One, I think a lot of these kids look at it and say, all right, some of the best players on Florida, you know, most notably guys like DJ Lagway and Jaden Baugh, they're only a year older than I am. And they're going out there on an SEC football field and making a massive impact. Players playing early really helps on the high school recruiting trail. And I think second, this team's going to be really damn good, or at least it looks like it's going to be really damn good in 2025 and in 2026. Like this is a bright future. This program, I think, is clearly going in the right direction. And all those, you know, kind of coming together is resulting in a Florida program that is absolutely catching fire. Now, Joseph Mbatchou, I'm really excited to dive into some of the film because when we talked about this kid in the summer, there just wasn't much film on him. It was just like this kid is a physical freak, for lack of better terms, that has a ton of traits that you want, but he just hasn't really played much football. You fast forward to the end of his senior year and you dive into the film and it's raw. Like you're going to see there. I don't think Joseph Mbatchou has a ton of clue in terms of what he's doing as a football player, but I'm bigger, stronger, faster than the offensive linemen that are trying to block me. I can just go physically impose my will. And that's kind of what you see. Give Billy Napier in this personnel department a ton of credit here. They were the first ones, the first big program to get on this kid early in the summer. He didn't have many offers. Florida offers him. He commits to Florida. Now everybody kind of starts catching up. I think, you know, Florida realizing him early and kind of giving him that love and attention, I think that matters. Even when teams like Georgia and Texas and Auburn start calling, I think in the back of his mind, he probably always remembered, you know, Billy Napier and this Florida Gator staff kind of giving him his first look. And I think that meant something towards down the stretch of this recruitment. You get into the film, and I was kind of hoping we could break this one down because I think he's a blast to watch. I mean, you turn it on and you just see one, a really versatile. Like I think he could grow into a nose, but I think I like him more as a three tech because of how athletic he is. But it doesn't really matter. You'll see him work all along the defensive line. This kid is just he's so powerful. And again, I don't know if there's a ton of clue of what's going on in the football field, but it doesn't take it very long to understand how physically gifted Joseph Mbatchou is. You see the length in the arms. He doesn't really use that length right now because I don't think he knows how to. My question is what happens when he does? Because the power this kid has in his hands, the power is devastating that he has in his hands. I mean, you see just a shock with a lot of these offensive linemen when they're trying to deal with him. Then you blend that with the length and athleticism. And he challenges you from a power standpoint. He challenges you from a speed standpoint. This kid, when he gets more polish on him, I think could be a really, really special football player. But again, just go back to him getting off the ball here. I mean, it's just these hands will devastate you. They will shock you. And I think that's what excites you the most. And you look at Florida in 2025 and say, we're sitting here 3-4 weeks ago. We just said this on Friday. They were outside of the top 50. Now you're looking at a top 15 class that is pushing to become a top 10 class in the country. And there's a very real pathway for Florida to be a top 10 class in the country in 2025. We didn't talk about Tavares Dice because he committed. I'm a Michigan fan, so I was going to war with Ohio State, so I couldn't break down the commitment. Really big fan of this kid. My 30-second blurb on him: 6'4", 295, basketball player too. You see the basketball player in him on the football field. Really, really light on his feet, and it's hard to find 6'4", 300+ pound bodies that have good feet and seem like they're natural athletes. Tavares Dice is that guy. A bunch of SEC programs wanted him, and he carries his weight exceptionally well. Like 6'4", 295. Definitely needs to add a little bit to the lower half and probably just add a little bit to the frame in general. That's fine with me. Hey, we'll put the weight on the right way when you get into the program, but give me the athlete. That's kind of my 30-second elevator pitch, so to speak, on Tavares Dice. Now, what kind of excites me down the stretch here, I mean, I think we have to talk about Solomon Thomas. Kind of a crafty move by Billy Napier and this Florida Gator staff. I think a lot of Florida Gator fans, and I'm not positive, but that was Alex Atkins on the sideline for Florida, right? That was Solomon Thomas's guy. And you look at Alex Atkins, the stint at Florida State was not great. I think there were a lot of other factors that were in play with Alex Atkins and his success level at Florida State. His guy is Alex Atkins. That is Solomon Thomas. Florida's pushing for him hard. There was two things that are working for you now. One, you go to Tallahassee, the school that Solomon Thomas is committed to, and just win the line of scrimmage all night. I mean, you run for over 200 yards. You have, 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss in that football game. When you're recruiting a line of scrimmage player and your program that you want him from, you go on the road, play that team, and just win the line of scrimmage, they ain't much better of a message to send to a guy like Solomon Thomas in terms of, hey, where do you want to go play your football for the next 3 to 4 years? And then you couple that with the relationship he has with Alex Atkins, that could be the tipping point for Solomon Thomas flipping his commitment from Florida State to Florida. Now, LSU, I know, is pushing hard too, but I think it's really hard to consider not Florida not kind of in the driver's seat here in the Solomon Thomas recruitment. And what excites me about Solomon Thomas is he's a guy that can play early. And I think he got some dogs on the inside. Bryce Lovett is starting to come on. Najee Harris, I think, could be an All-American next year. Jake Slaughter on the inside. So there's some depth there, but I think Solomon Thomas comes in and is at least in the 2 deep. Some other guys like a Joseph Mbatchou or Tavares Dice, they might need a year. Joseph Mbatchou maybe 2. Solomon Thomas doesn't really need a year. Like, this kid is probably ready to play early in the SEC. Another name that I would keep an eye on, Drake Stubbs. And from what I've seen about Drake Stubbs, I think this kid, he always wanted to go to Florida. There was a ton of buzz about him going to Florida before he committed to USC, then before he committed to Miami. I think what was kind of holding him up is the future of the program. You look at Drake Stubbs, and I think where you want to start is look at these safeties playing for Florida. They look awesome. I think Will Harris has done a phenomenal job with this group. They're all young. They're playing early. I think Drake Stubbs sees an ability for himself to play early. What I love about Drake Stubbs, this kid is a ball hawk, and we all know the problems Florida had in terms of forcing turnovers in 2023, specifically interceptions. You know how you fix that. Go get Drake Stubbs, who just lives for reading the quarterback's eyes and getting his hands on footballs. This is one of my favorite safety prospects in the 2025 cycle, and from what it sounds like, Florida in the absolute driver's seat for Drake Stubbs' commitment. Last guy I want to talk about, Lonzo Hayward, another safety, 4-star. He was committed to Tennessee now. just reading tea leaves, I'm no insider, committed to Tennessee for a while. He's on campus in Gainesville this weekend on Sunday. Today, he decommitted from Tennessee. And I know Georgia is really pushing for this kid too, so it sounds like it's going to come down to Florida and Georgia, but I don't think it's a coincidence that, one, Will Harris was tweeting out some cryptic messages, and number two, Lonzo Hayward was on campus when he decommitted to Tennessee, or from Tennessee. Lonzo Hayward, kind of a different style than Drake Stubbs. Like, Lonzo Hayward's a guy that wants to be in the tackle box. He wants to be really physical at the point of attack. This kid is quite put together. I mean, we're talking about not only just flip commitment targets, we're talking about legitimate blue chip talent that is trending to Florida. And you could probably throw some guys in like Jamie French as well. Jamie French, I think there's still a legitimate shot that he winds up playing for Florida. And I know there's a lot of optimism around the Florida program that Jamie French could end up playing for Florida. And you look at Jamie French, hey, there's going to be, you're going to have passing attack over the next 2 years with DJ Lagway running and specifically working vertically down the field. Jamie French can do that, along with his high school teammate, Tramel Jones, committed to Florida as well. It's about to get real for the Florida Gators. We'll obviously break down all the commitments that come in. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys on a late Sunday night. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.